Welcome to the aDrop.ai podcast. Today we have with us John Vibes from the Somnia Network as our special guest, as well as some of our regular contributors, Gravy from the Professor Degens community, Rashid, our CMO, all made up, one of our alpha testers, and a very funny comedian, Vino V's, who's also Graham, artist, and one of our advisors, and Alex Fratley, our COO. All very happy to have you here. John, thanks for coming. You and I have known each other for a couple years now, and we met at NFT NYC that one year, and it's kind of cool, seeing you here again. So thanks for agreeing to show up on our Twitter Spaces.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for having me. I think we even connected before crypto, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right. That's right. Because you have a kind of broader impact on the world that extends beyond crypto, don't you?
Yeah, I spent years as a journalist, and before that, I threw a lot of raves on the East Coast. So I have kind of collected people from all those ventures and stuff like that. And I kind of transitioned from just doing regular journalism and just everything about the world to just zeroing in on crypto over the years because it's just kind of more fun and less stress. And then that just led me to me working in the industry.
Yeah,
That's cool.
that's
Really
it
cool.
is cool. What's the name of your first book? Dark Stars and Purple Hearts.
Oh yeah. My most recent one. It's Paper Squares and Purple Stars: My Life as a Rave Outlaw, and that is basically the story about my company, and that's how I got my name. My company was Good Vibes Promotions, and back in those early years, I was doing a lot of underground parties, so I wasn't telling everybody my government last name, and then everybody just started calling me John
Sure.
Vibes.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So, were you promoting concerts and parties? Were you also a DJ yourself? What exactly was your role in all that?
Yeah, I wasn't actually a DJ myself. I was hiring the DJs, booking the clubs, hiring the decoration crew, planning the themes, getting the flyers done, stuff like that, and just kind of planning the show from start to finish. So I would say, hey, let's find a place, and then we'd find a place and go from there.
That's dope.
Do you think there's a link to I always think there's a bit of a link to underground rave, the sort of rave scene, and crypto. I think there seems to be a little of a cool link.
I've noticed that, and it's actually pretty crazy because there are people that really surprise me sometimes. Like I was at Consensus 2 weeks ago, and we were working the booth for Somnia, and there was one guy that I ran into, and he was very professional. He was actually a lawyer, and then he kind of asked me about my background in crypto, and I kind of touched on that, and he's like, "No way! I used to go to all these raves," and so yeah, we're out here, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's like the off the grid sort of thing, isn't it? It's a similar sort of crypto seems to be off. Obviously, it's not mainstream, obviously currency, so it feels a bit off the grid. And obviously, there's the link to the rave being off the grid as well. I think it's that feeling of you get what I mean? I get what I'm trying to say.
It's a very countercultural kind of thing still. Yeah, for sure.
I reckon the confluence of these two things is the Matrix. I remember there was this one scene in one of the Matrix films where there's this massive underground rave happening, with all the machines kind of not even knowing that it's happening. And it was this weird sort of dance culture meets sci-fi. I think that's where the confluence is.
I can totally see that for sure.
That's hilarious. I remember that scene, and I also remember skipping through that scene because I just wanted to see Kung Fu and Robots every time I play through it on the DVD. But love the Matrix. A lot of interesting things there. So, I mean, John, you started as this party promoter and journalism. I mean, I think I first encountered you through your journalism. Can you tell me a bit about that? And, are you still actively involved in journalism? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so not so much actually. I had a with the rave thing, I faced a lot of adversity from local politicians, law enforcement, stuff like that. So like I kind of became outspoken in my local area through that, and that's kind of how I started writing. And then I tried to, in trying to sell my first book, that's when I ended up, deciding to get into journalism and start writing things. And my kind of angle over the years was, trying to bring the people together, the average, everyday people of the world, and just kind of craft my narratives in a way that instead of like polarizing people, tried to bring people together, tried to show people their common goals and things like that. But I faced some health issues a couple of years ago. I had cancer. I'm like 7 years clear of that. So it's long behind me. But through that, I started to realize like it was a very stressful thing, like covering just all this, crazy stuff that was happening in the world every day. And I just figured I'd focus on my kind of more nerdy interests instead of like try and what ended up being like a seemingly losing battle, trying to keep the peace in the world. So I figure I put in my time on that for like over a decade, and now it's time for me to work on what I think are solutions. Instead of documenting the problems, I'm trying to focus on the solutions these days. And I think with our financial system and our economy, I think that crypto gives a lot of really awesome solutions for that. Of course, I'm working in one of the fun areas with like metaverse and gaming and stuff like that, but I still think it all ties together. And I do think that gaming, especially Web3 and play to earn, is going to do a lot of crazy things for the economy and give people streams of income that they never expected before. And I think people are going to be really surprised by that. So I'm still doing things that I'm excited about and that I think are going to change the world, but just a lot less of a buzzkill, I guess you could say.
Sure. I mean, I remember, I feel like I spent a lot of time on Facebook, which is where I met you, I'm pretty sure, engaging in conversations with people, trying to, I guess, convince them of my worldview, or just engaging in debates, right, or arguments of various kinds, um, about the matters of the world, war and poverty and politics, and free healthcare and universal education and different things like that. And I just got so overwhelmingly fatigued with having these conversations all the time that at a certain point I just tuned out. And it was probably along the same lines, the same time when I read this article talking about how online conversations almost never, if ever, change somebody's mind because it lacks a lot of the emotional, verbal and nonverbal like context clues that are necessary to really like convince somebody of something. When you're reading only text, it's just not enough to really change somebody's mind. And so, yeah, it. Go ahead. What do you think about that?
I totally agree. And actually, like working in the industry over the past couple years and like kind of understanding how we have all of these kind of like game theory type situations based on incentives, it made me really especially when you see the push and pull of all this money in different directions and the narratives that go in different directions. It really shows you how much incentives drive things. And I honestly think in a lot of situations, like the incentives come first, and then people make up ideologies later to justify the incentives, or to make the incentives that they're following make sense, if that makes any sense. So I feel like that's one of the things that really excites me about this tech, is that you can that we can redesign the incentives that exist in society. And I think that's a lot more powerful than getting in online debates and stuff like that.
For sure, for sure. Creating like infrastructure change, right? In the social fabric of society. Um, I think that's a perfect segue into the main topic of our conversation today. Of course, you are the Chief Vibes Officer of Somnia. aDrop.ai, we are a platform that focuses on automating and making efficient farming airdrops and interacting with dozens of different platforms and chains. And who knows, Somnia could be one of them one day. We'll have to talk later on. But I think what brings us together here is, airdrops. One of the things that kind of prompted this conversation is I saw you making a comment elsewhere about how you are actively farming a lot of airdrops. And, I think this is one of the major incentives that's occurring in crypto right now to participate in different economies. And so, um, yeah, why don't you start by, telling me about Somnia? I read about it, in preparation for this podcast episode. Um, but I'm still not totally understanding what sets Somnia apart. Why should I choose this L1 as my base of operations? Yeah, do you want to start there?
Yeah, totally. So there's a lot going on with us. We have a couple of different products, one of which is the L1, but we also have a set of on-chain protocols that kind of work to connect different metaverse and gaming experiences. So if you look at a project like Sandbox or Decentraland or the other similar metaverse projects that we have in Web3, we would not see them as competition or anything. We would be looking to bridge those worlds to where, an avatar that works in one of those places can work in the other, and people can trade across blockchains and across platforms. And so it's more of like a large virtual society, as we say, instead of all of these siloed experiences. In working with what we're doing, we have found that we do think that there is a need for an L1 that is optimized for gaming in the metaverse. And we do think that a lot of projects will choose to build on us, but we do believe in a multi-chain future as well. So that's why we have the omni-chain protocols to connect everybody, regardless of where they're at, where they're with us or, any other chain that you can mention. So that is kind of the overall thing of what we're trying to do. It's basically anything that is working on scale and interoperability for the metaverse. That's what Somnia is focused on. And yeah, I see a question. I'm happy to take it.
And nice to make your acquaintance. Love having you on the show. Is it something that's kind of Insomnia, like similar to Superverse, an engine, or is it entirely different?
I think that there are definitely some similarities there. That's connected with Futureverse, right?
I have no knowledge of that.
Okay. I might be thinking of something different, but it's there are a couple of different aspects to it. First, there's the interoperability for the blockchain, and then the interoperability for the platforms, and then there's also so the blockchain would cover the assets, and the platforms, it's more of like a visual thing. So we use standards like metaverse markup language, which we would work with the different platforms. Most of them have adopted it now, where the avatars will work it from one place to another. And another one of the like key aspects that we have that we think are pretty cool is that the ability to collaborate across platforms and across blockchains with other creators. So an example of this would be if there's a concert experience that a creator puts together in one of their worlds, they can sell pieces of that to other creators in the platform that they used it on or on other platforms. So you could sell like a stage setup on a marketplace protocol with a bunch of other creators. They could buy that, and if they want to make tweaks to it, they can. So for example, they could change the color or design, and they could resell that again, and everyone in that chain of line, depending on what the royalties are set out for, they would get royalties in the form of micro payments. So I see there's another question. I'm happy to take that as well.
Yeah, this is super cool and super interesting. Like as Rashid said, lovely to meet you. Very nice to make your acquaintance. And yeah, so my background was kind of more on the arty side of things. I've been involved with kind of metaversey gaming projects in the past around the crypto space. And I'm kind of wondering, so you mentioned there's this new standard that people are kind of building within that's kind of like a metaverse standard. So where does the responsibility for sort of the fidelity of visual assets lie? Like, for example, you mentioned Sandbox and some other things. Let's say if you had like an avatar in Sandbox, which is, you know, very Minecraft looking, it's kind of blocky and square and, you know, it looks kind of pixel. And then you want to use that avatar in something that's quite high fidelity, something like Illuvium or like more like a AAA game style of thing. Is it the studio who are making the games that have the responsibility to be able to make those art assets so that you can transfer them, or is there like an automated process? Like, how does that work?
Yes, it depends on the situation and in a lot of circumstances, but it will, in many cases, fall on the responsibility of the game companies. There will be cases where you know, people build on us and certain things are by default across all lines. But I think this kind of gets easier to visualize when we start thinking about interoperability for like playable items in games. So this goes beyond cosmetic items. Cosmetic items are super easy because it's just changing the look and the visuals. But once it starts getting more complicated than that, and we start to introduce gameplay mechanics, you can start to break games accidentally. Like you could take like a gun or a rocket launcher into a wizard game or a game that takes place in medieval times or something like that. And that could totally mess things up unless all of those games are either created by the same company or created by companies who are collaborating together, who you know, are able to make that happen and put the correct guardrails in there so the game doesn't break. So what we want to do is we want to be able to facilitate this collaboration to allow it to happen for the companies that do want it to happen.
That sounds super fun. I really love Graham's question there, because if you do items, you need like game designers to maybe tweak the properties of a certain item before it can be used, right? Or do you imagine it will be solved with tables and a rocket launcher will just have the stats of a fireball or the closest thing to it, depending on, I don't know, its ID3 tag or something?
I think that's probably a pretty good solution, actually. And I think that different game companies will kind of come up with different solutions as we go on through that. And I think that there will be a lot of experimentation, which means that like a lot of hilariously bad and awesomely good stuff will come from it. But I kind of think that's how the at least first year or so of that going will work out. I see another question. Happy to answer that as well.
Yeah, no, I love what you're saying. There's obviously humongous technical challenges. I just wonder where the onus is on the game studios. It's kind of the double question of why would a game studio be incentivized to do it? And also just looking at the massive layoffs, right? I mean, it's been nothing but a bloodbath since, you know, pre-Christmas time for studios shutting down. You know, and what kind of will happen if it's on the onus of the game developers to ensure these assets work across platforms when, you know, half-life of these studios is kind of like 2 years at the moment. It's going to like lead to a lot of legacy problems, right? As platforms, engines, and everything just, you know, endlessly move forwards.
Yeah.
So how do we handle that?
Yeah, so that's definitely understandable, and especially in Web3, like you know, there hasn't been any of these companies that have come out that have extreme staying power. Although we have seen bigger companies like Square Enix, or however you pronounce that, the Final Fantasy company, starting to get involved in Web3 and take it more seriously. And hopefully many other companies will as well. In our case, we are very closely connected with a company called Improbable, which has been working to build metaverse experiences for the past, I think, like 10 years or so. They're also connected with M Squared. All three of our companies are kind of connected in some way. Basically, Improbable started and founded M Squared, and then we were initiated by M Squared to cover the Web3 stuff. So there are already a lot of experiences that are being built by Improbable that are going to be compatible with each other. As so, we have kind of like a lot of prototypes to work with, I guess you could say. And won't be depending on bringing all these companies together off the bat. We're going to have something to kind of like a working model to show as we start to onboard partners. But yeah, to your broader point, I think that as much as I would like to see like crypto native companies really succeed, you know, the big old players like Square Enix are gonna I think they're gonna be the ones to succeed in this realm, I think. Although they'll be the least willing to experiment, unfortunately.
No, I'm an Enix guy for the pronunciation, but no, the point's well taken. Yeah, I think they've done a lot of interesting, like mini kind of gacha, chibi, NFTs, that sort of thing. But they have made a point so far of keeping them isolated. That's not to say they will in the future, but it's definitely something to see how it evolves. I think there's a blockchain game coming to Nintendo Switch and the Cooking Mama brand. But yeah, right now it all seems isolated. So yeah, if interoperability can be solved, it will be pretty amazing. I'm guessing maybe you'll have to look at building your own engine via Improbable or community on-chain assets that form, building blocks, something like that.
That's what Epic is doing, right? They've built this Unreal Engine, and you can build games on that.
Mm-hmm. Off-chain, but yeah.
I think we are working on something very similar with Improbable, or Improbable has already created something similar.
True. I mean, it'd be very interesting as well to see, because obviously the tech Improbable work on for massively multiplayer. I think Star Citizen finally actually cracked server meshing as a viable technology, so that should become more widespread now. But obviously, it'll be a direct competitor to what Improbable has been working on. But we should see more massively multiplayer, multi-server games. Sort of.
Yeah, I think that they're I think that the benchmark that I've heard most recently is over 10,000 or tens of thousands of people in the same virtual world.
Yeah, I think the Star Citizen one was about 100,000, and I think I saw M Squared do 100,000 avatars. But the server meshing obviously allows for non-instance side of things, fire from one server through to the other, that sort of thing.
Yeah, that sounds.
The technology is finally catching up, is the takeaway. It's there for us to use. So the future is golden.
Yeah, we're finally getting there. Unfortunately, when Zuckerberg shined a light on the entire industry 2 years ago, I don't think we were really there yet. But I think now we are getting to the place where we should have been getting that attention.
Yeah, I mean, he does it a lot, doesn't he? Anyone remember Libra coin?
That definitely does sound, yep.
Yeah, Facebook currency will rule the world.
Oh, yeah. That was what it was called before DM, yep.
I forgot about DM. Yeah, they'll keep trying. The new dollar, Facebook coin.
I think Facebook and Meta are just on, obviously, a spiral at the minute, aren't they? There's just, I think 10 years' time, I can't see Meta existing. I think it's, it's definitely gone downhill in the past 5 years. Combining all them platforms just doesn't work, does it? And obviously, trying to add a currency also does imply that you are trying to take over the world. So maybe don't be as obvious if you're trying to take over the world, I think.
Yeah, they were pretty obvious with it.
Too big to fail. They're like a bank now, effectively. That'll probably be in the portfolio before you know it. But can't only have TikTok, you know.
Aren't like 8 of the board members of Meta also 8 of the board members of Monsanto? So they own our food too, right?
I wouldn't be surprised about that, actually.
Yeah, but they can't get TikTok because obviously that's the CCP, isn't it? So there's a.
And I think all those the hedge funds, Vanguard and all them, they like buy up all those shares in those companies. So it's probably all Vanguard sitting on those boards, and State Street, BlackRock.
Yeah, I thought BlackRock owned Vanguard, but I could be misinformed.
Oh yeah, no, you're probably right.
But if you're going to take over the world, do it in secret like me. Do it under the radar. Then turn up last minute.
Love it. I have a question. So, like with most of these play to earn games, right? Especially in crypto, the entire emphasis is on the fact that the novelty of it being a crypto run game or a crypto incentivized game. That's the majority of what it is, and the entire game seems to be like a skin to make I don't know, an exchange more fun, right?
Yep.
So
like yield farming with extra steps, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Like I love playing Upland. Don't get me wrong, but Upland it's like all economy, and the game aspect has been totally ignored. It's very hard to navigate and looks ugly as fuck. But the financial mechanics are there. How will Improbable's universe or metaverse be different, or make sure that the emphasis is on gaming, or is that not the point for you guys?
I think that is kind of our emphasis first, and that is like the foundation that we're kind of built on. Is that like the companies that we kind of were founded by have been focused on that and haven't even been focused on blockchain. So we're adding, except for M Squared, of course, but we are working on the blockchain end of things, and we already have this foundation there. But I think as far as like what we're seeing in Web3, a lot of it is just like the primitive nature of where we're at with things. Of course, the technology is there to make good games that, have an economy. But I think that, like we were talking about incentives earlier, the incentive now is just to, appeal to the lowest common denominator, get the farmers in, and I don't want to get too controversial, but like you kind of like saw this with like Blast, where with the contest. So there was like a developer contest, and they they encourage developers to work on all these different apps throughout the ecosystem in exchange for rewards. But really what you ended up getting was people promoting really bad apps really well, and getting a lot of attention on them. And I feel like there's, just because there was that incentive for the money, and I think that eventually we'll grow out of it, and people will to grow beyond the Web3 space. Like it's going to need to be more than just like a yield farm with a fun interface, but I just think it's a nature of the industry that we're in, kind of.
Yeah, most games I see are just gambling games, right? It's like it's not even maybe yield farming. It's just frivolously YOLOing your money into something that might go belly up or might not, right? Like the old
Well,
castle.
let's look at the current flavor of the month for that with Blast Gold and Fantasy Top. There was a lot of KOLs preaching the Fantasy Top meta, farming Blast Gold, and we can see now that as this kind of Blast Gold generation season starts wrapping up, these things are tanking really hard, but essentially that was just gambling for these jackpots and gambling with their, fantasy influencer battles. But yeah, anyway, I think it's interesting to see that.
Yeah, definitely. It's just like a symptom of the space that we're in, and like I love it and I hate it at the same time, and it's just one of those things. Like it, it's the positives and negatives of being in a like degenerate space,
Yeah, but I'm really here to like build and earn and add value, right? And then every time I
Absolutely.
fall for something that turns out to be a gamble, it's just like I don't need that from this space. I can go to a casino, right? Why would I need this? I'm looking for opportunities to earn.
Well, you got games like Gods Unchained, which is like a really good game in my opinion, but I don't the economy is I think leaves a lot to be desired in the opportunities there. If you like really grind and become one of the best players, then you can definitely earn something in there. But
Yeah, but then I could also play Magic offline, right? I could also earn if I became one of the top players there. That's not
exactly.
what I mean. Like I'm looking for like play to earn games. For me is like I'm enjoying myself and I'm making money.
That's why I think that the economy in Gods Unchained leaves a lot to be desired. And it would be nice if we could get a game that has the style of gameplay that Gods Unchained has, with kind of similar returns that the Ponzi stuff does.
If I could ask, because one of the points you made just there I thought was super fascinating about how these games in the metaverse and the crypto space, blah blah blah, they're kind of appealing as an incentive to some of the lowest common denominators. Sometimes they're basically like, look, here we are, we're trying to make a game, but in the meantime, come and siphon off some money, come and like make a little bit of income, and be rewarded. Obviously, the end goal of a metaverse really is to literally be a metaverse, to be like a digital layer on top of the real world. But at the moment, the balance is all out. Like the way it is right now, people in the real world are going into the metaverse to find stuff and then bring it back to the real world, which implies there's a hierarchy. They're still in the real world. They're going there. They're taking the resources. They're bringing it back into their own lives. So, for you as someone who was a purveyor of bringing different people and worlds together, like through raves, through like counterculture, all these kind of things, what would you like to see that would actually start to kind of bridge those gaps between metaverse, real world, and be able to give people incentives to stay there beyond just kind of grabbing a few resources and then running home again?
That's an awesome question. So I think we started talking about a piece of it was just actually having enjoyable experiences for people to check out. But I think the deeper aspect of it is community ownership of the platforms and the applications. And, this is like a lot of what we're seeing through airdrops in Web3. Of course, it would be nice if the VCs and, the factory farmers didn't have the control that they did, but the basic idea is there. You know what I mean? The basic intent is there, and it would be nice if we could work out some of those bugs in that process. But I do think that the community ownership aspect is going to be big, because if people have a stake in it, it's going to mean a lot more to them. And I know that just from my personal experience from farm and airdrops myself, about how I feel to have much more of a personal stake in a platform that sees me as a valuable enough part of what they're doing to reward me in a reasonable way.
Do you think there's space in this space for sort of less intrinsic stuff? So obviously, I'm in this space too. I've been here for a long while, and I totally believe in the same values. Like community ownership and like freedom to express yourself and to gain income through other ways and blah blah blah. I think it's really really cool. But do you think there's space for something less tangible, like can people come to crypto or the metaverse for something as simple as the same reason you go to a dance or you go to a sports event, i.e. entertainment and fun? Like, does there have to be a sort of political or economical aspect to it in order for it to succeed?
I don't think so, but at the same time, I think that that aspect is going to be kind of necessary to warm people up to things. Once people get familiar with, you know, whether it be the metaverse or Web3, you could look at these both the same way. Until people get comfortable with these kind of weird ways of doing things, we're going to need some way to pull them over. And then, they'll see the other values here. But that's one of the things that I think is super important about both play to earn and airdrops, and just any ways that, the value can be returned to the new users, because of the fact that when you try to talk to the average person about crypto, especially these days, a lot of people are like, I live paycheck to paycheck. I'm not going to I don't have any spare change for magic internet money. You know what I'm saying? But if you tell people, hey, play this game for a couple weeks and you might be able to get involved in the crypto ecosystem. And then if you earn this currency, you could, buy something else with it and start your portfolio. And then you can start paying attention to this world. And I think that that's like a lot. I think that's the important piece there, is that it's a good incentive to bring new people on. And that could be their foot in the door to like financial freedom, as small as it could be.
I might be off a bit, but I do feel that most people that I've met in Web3, and also the friends of like my friends that are responding to my invitations to join me in all of these Web3 things, those are typically the hustlers, the people who would go to a party and seek entertainment from, I don't know, selling a mixtape or selling other illicit goods, or or profiting off of the party by booking artists, or right. Those people are here right now. Those are the front runners, the people who are willing to take risks and put their time and attention in a space that might not yield them a result, because they want to hustle and try to get the maximum out of it. And I think, like, the people that are just going to a party for dancing or for entertainment are not here yet. Or am I wrong?
No, you're right. And I think like we're the hustlers, and that's why they're going to buy our bags. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't necessarily need the profit of the generation that comes next to me. I would like the profit of added value and added productivity and added ideas and
Absolutely.
co-creation. I would like to profit off of that instead of shilling my bags. But I do understand what
in
you
all
mean.
seriousness, I agree.
We're so
Sure.
fucking early, it hurts. I understand. We cannot but profit from those who come after us. But still, I think that the entrepreneurs come first. And entrepreneurs don't go to a party to dance; they go to a party to network.
Yeah, I agree entirely. That's a extremely good point, for sure, across the board.
I think aDrop should send me on more networking excursions. I agree with both of you guys 100%.
We
That's-
will the second John G decides to open his wallet and invest in us, right? John G, can I send you an investor deck?
I wish I had. I wish I had money to be investing.
These bags you speak of.
Oh man! I was speaking of the royal way.
I think we should have a rave. We should have a rave for the launch of the app, the official launch of the app. I think we should have. I think that's only right after what we've been saying today.
That's a good point. Actually, Somnia does throw some killer parties. We had an after party every night at Consensus, and they were all pretty good.
Well, there we go then.
That sounds lit. Did you get to organize those, John?
Yeah, actually, I wasn't even the main organizer. Adele, our growth manager, I got to give her most of the credit for it. And I helped a little bit, but yeah, it was mainly her that organized them.
Very cool. That's mighty big of you. With your history.
Sorry, I was just going to say, I think this is a really good way to do it. Like, You're a rave master. We used to have a massive rave scene here in the UK as well. What we need is an aDrop party, a networking event, a place where people can get together, perhaps in a forest somewhere, kind of semi-far away from civilization, but easy enough to get to, book some epic DJs, get all the lights, get all the fun. And then this is where the marketing comes in. It'll be all over BBC News once everyone gets arrested. But all of the people who are kind of interested in that will be like, oh my God, that sounds awesome.
That's
And
perfect.
everybody who gets arrested can get like a grant from us. Like, yeah, you're real. Here's an airdrop. Bomb for getting arrested. I love that.
That's good. Yeah, incentivize crime. That's always a good idea.
That's civil disobedience, not crime. There's a difference.
I am
I
not
love the crypto
associated with
space
this
as well
business.
for this reason.
No, it's a really interesting conversation. I want to ask you, John. I mean, we keep talking about incentivized incentives and community building. I'm wondering if you're, aside from throwing the best ragers at consensus, what kind of incentives are Insomnia baking into their user experience that one might be on the alert for? I mean, are you guys planning an airdrop in the future of any kind? Is there something that, our early adopters going to have some kind of advantage when it comes to Somnia?
I can say that we have a rewards campaign that we are currently running for people in our community. And those rewards will be forthcoming. I can't really say anything about an airdrop like specifically because you know how that goes. But I can say that we believe a lot in community ownership and all that good stuff. So the main thing is if you follow our Twitter and get in our Discord and all that, and you'll see that we run different campaigns. Sometimes it's as simple as minting an avatar. Sometimes it's joining our experience. And if you're not able to do that, we allow people to just tune in sometimes, which is a lot easier for mobile, especially. And then you could just like pick up on the secret word that we throw out and complete your quest or whatever. We are thinking we are a few months out from mainnet. And when I say a few, I mean like, maybe 5, 6 around then, not like 2, 3. But we already have products out. We have metaverse browser that people can use. We have different experiences a couple times a month that people can check out. And anybody who regularly participates in what we're doing will probably have a good time once we get started with mainnet.
Sounds lovely.
Yeah, it's amazing. Are you familiar with the tech side of things? Like, what kind of development does it take to launch a mainnet? I mean, obviously this is a kind of a momentous undertaking. But I'm not really sure, like, what does it take to create a protocol that can, take? Is it mostly just testing? Do you guys have a live test net right now?
So we have a beta net, which we had over 100,000 avatars minted on, and then we have a test net coming soon. I don't think there's a timeline for that, but soon we're probably in the next month or two, we're going to release something called the Playground, which will allow users to create their own metaverse space. They won't need to buy land for that. Anybody can do it for free. So I think those are kind of so as far as the development end of things, we're very lucky that there was this massive foundation built for us. We're and we have access to a lot of partners, a lot of development. So that definitely helps kind of speed things along. But I could actually talk a little bit about some of the unique things about our blockchain that I'm able to say now. Because it is definitely kind of unique. It's basically a EVM L1 that is built from scratch mostly, aside from, of course, like taking the EVM. And we're using independent data chains. So each validator runs its own mini blockchain that allows them to go really fast. We then have a modified version of hot stuff running across those data chains to reach consensus. And we also rewrote the data layer with a new database. Most blockchains use something like RocksDB, and we have created a new hyper-performant disk database, which is going to be in our white paper that will be coming out soon. And we also created a new compression algorithm that allows more data to be sent between the nodes, and that's going to be in the white paper soon as well.
Is that like a little proprietary rollup or something, or is it what is it like?
I think that is a good comparison. We're trying to find the right words to put this into, because a lot of this stuff is actually quite unique and new. But I think that might be a good way to describe it. I might, yeah.
Sounds
Awesome.
cool. And is that something for the entire ecosystem of Improbable, or is that something that's like Somnia specific?
Improbable will definitely use this because they're like one of our main partners, as will M Squared. And we do think that, like I said, it's going to be optimized for gaming in the metaverse. But if there are other applications outside of that realm that, decide to use us, that would be great, and we would welcome that. But we're definitely most focused on gaming and metaverse and optimizing for that.
So like, sorry for maybe I'm naive and I didn't catch everything. But so this blockchain that you've built for the Somnia network, that is purely for the ownership and the financial aspects of the games that will be running on your metaverse. Is that correct?
Yes, and also, yeah. And like I said as well, we have the interoperability products. So even if people don't build on our blockchain, we'll probably still be dealing with them regardless on the interoperability end.
So, and your coin will live on that network. Can other coins be like bridged to your network? Can they live there, or do you have to? Are you wrapping them, or what does it look like for like let's say Ether or something coming onto your network?
That I would probably have to check with the founder for, because I haven't worked through that with him yet. So I don't want to give a wrong answer there.
Sure, fair enough.
I was sorry, Dizzy. I was thinking, because these games, they offer a brilliant opportunity for people to to invest value for a long time and lock it up in the form of assets and skins, and maybe even you need to hold a certain amount of coins to be able to get a battle pass or something in a specific game. I think for TVL, play to earn games can do wonders for chains. Is that true, or am I stupid in thinking that?
Yeah, no, I think that's definitely correct, and that aligns with our thesis there too.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's magnificent. There's so much to think about.
Yeah, definitely. I wish I had a better answer on the token aspect, but I will say the reason why the interoperability and the blockchain is kind of under the same umbrella is because they will all be tied kind of to the utility there, if that makes sense.
I want to ask you about gas fees. And, is it going to be expensive to use the network? Are you guys improving on that aspect? I know there's a lot of EVM-based blockchains out there. And my, biggest question is usually like, how much better will it be? And then how decentralized will your network be also at the same time? Will it be decentralized? I mean, I think there's definitely a use case for more centralized networks. Either way, but yeah, curious about those two aspects.
Yeah, definitely. So the speed and cost was one of the main reasons why they decided to go this route and do their own L1, because if you think about all of these different people interacting in different metaverses, and they're all trying to trade things, and these sometimes you're trading things that have multiple components, and it would get the throughput needed would be very high, right? So as it is right now, we're planning for it to be extremely low, or even like next to no cost in many circumstances. However, of course, like we're pre-launch now, so once things get out into the wild, we have seen projections be a lot different. But that's what we're shooting for. I see. Is that a new question or an old one that I see? But happy to answer it. Vino, did I see that hand? Is that a new hand or?
Probably a bit of lag. I don't see it on my side.
Okay. All right. No worries. I saw it pop up. But yeah, so that's that aspect. As far as the decentralization, I would say definitely anything right now that's going to be built is going to be less decentralized than Bitcoin and Ethereum. But we're definitely in our white paper, we have some we're going to encourage like a lot of validators and nodes. Essentially, we're going to try to do that. I can't get into the specifics of that, but decentralization is going to be a goal. But at the same time, we understand that there's like the big blockchains, Ethereum, Bitcoin, they're going to have like the high value institutional assets. And we think that we're going to be like perfect level of decentralization and security for the use case that we're shooting for.
Awesome. So validators and nodes, and I assume staking is what we'll see in the future, which is all pretty interesting stuff. I personally like staking with nodes. It allows you to help secure a network and usually get a yield at the same time. Great way to invest in a chain. I'm curious too, John, aside from Somnia, like what kind of airdrops are you targeting? What's been your secret sauce these days?
What, with farming?
Yeah, with airdrop farming.
Yeah, so well, I finally, after spending 2 years farming ZK Sync, the checker went out last week. I know people weren't happy with it, but I did okay. I feel like if they redo it, then I'll do better. But still, I feel like one mistake that a lot of people made on ZK Sync is that they they went in there, they used some apps, they traded every so often, they might have put a lot of money in an LP, but they didn't spam transactions on the DEX. And a lot of people that I know that didn't qualify and were quite unhappy about it, they all followed that same similar strategy. Like they went through, they used all of the apps once, they locked up a large amount of money in an LP for a long time, and that definitely isn't going to cut it. You gotta at least do like 20 transactions a week or something on DEX with maybe at least $1,000, because you need at least $20,000 in transaction volume to qualify for these things. And if you and that actually you can do that with $1,000. You just got to trade it back and forth 20 times. And if you do it 100 times, you get $100,000 in transaction volume. You could qualify for a really decent size one. So I think that's always one of my main strategies. It gets more complicated now with all the Galaxy and Zealy stuff, where you kind of gotta prove you're a human in many different ways. But always, without fail, the first step you got to do is spam the the decks with those transactions. And I have found that trading between ETH and wrapped ETH is one of the easiest ways to do that, because you don't get a bunch of slippage and the like fee. It's just, you usually lose less money with each trade. So that was one of my main strategies with ZK Sync. And overall, like, I stay up on Galaxy quite a bit, although there's like a lot of trash on there that you got to sift through. I think one of my next I'm hoping that I do good on what Orbiter.finance. That's the main bridge that I've been going for. I have like, I think 1,200 points or something like that. I don't know how that is or how that stacks up, but
I was shocked. No, you're easily in the top 1% of users, I think.
Nice. No,
Yeah.
I've been farming that one for a while, because like I made some really bad decisions last year during the bear market, just chasing dopamine. So like, I really have to make up for it airdrop farming now.
The lesson we all have to learn, my friend. I was trying to warn my amigos back when the bear started. It's hard. It's hard chasing gains in the bear market. Easier to just stand on the side and farm airdrops, in my opinion, because those come rain or shine. I really get excited when I hear you talking about that strategy and the need to generate the on-chain volume. I don't know if you had a chance to look at the aDrop demo yet. It is just the alpha, so it's very limited in feature and functionality. But if you have, you will see that that's exactly what one of the core functions of our app is for, generating volume seamlessly, and usually not just with one dApp, but between multiple dApps, using different bridges at the same time. And yeah, I think you're really going to like what you experience there. Our beta is launching in 2 weeks, and oops, I don't know if I was supposed to say that. A beta is launching in a couple weeks, and
Edit it out.
our beta is launching in a couple weeks, and that'll have more full functionality and a beautiful interface, and I'm really excited for that. But yeah, did you manage to get a look at it before our space today?
Yeah, I did. I signed up and connected my wallet, and I started browsing through the airdrop options and what you were doing there. It looks like a really, really cool interface, especially compared to some of the other ones I've seen. And like I was saying earlier, like with Galaxy, there's like a lot of trash to sift through, and it's good to have stuff curated, like the stuff that is going to hit, and not just somebody just trying to promote a project that's never going to do an airdrop.
Yeah, we agree 100%. I know our founder, Thomas, who just joined the stage recently. I don't know if he's going to want to say something here in a second, but I know he's really passionate about that curation process and looking for key factors that, determine whether or not an airdrop is likely from any given project. You had mentioned ZK Sync. I know that they just put out their wallet checker yesterday. I personally did not qualify. I didn't start messing with ZK Sync early enough, but I'm curious, did you manage to get an allocation from there?
Yeah, I did okay.
Oh, awesome.
We'll see how much my tokens end up being worth, but like, I think I should be somewhere around 10K, I hope. Like, but like my allotment was like 26K ZK
Wow.
tokens.
Wow.
So we'll see, but pre-market they were like 30 cents or something, 35 cents. I'm pretty sure they'll go up after, from the pre-market price. But so that's not too bad. But I definitely have been that one I was pushing so hard for so long. It's crazy. It's been like 2 years on that one.
Yeah, incredible. You have to have a lot of foresight to airdrop hunt successfully, and kudos to you for that. I mean, that's a huge allocation. I know I was kind of watching the situation unfold on Twitter, especially after I did not get an allocation, and I know a lot of people are upset and kind of railing at ZK Sync right now, mostly because I think they took the snapshot in March and then they didn't announce it here until middle of July. Just from a purely a perspective of like, you know, your own chain, and like how do you see that? Do you see that as like a decent practice, a poor practice? I feel like the airdrop meta is constantly changing, and it's just, yeah, it's interesting to see how this most recent large serious airdrop unfolded. um
Yeah, I mean, I feel with them, it was the like it was supposed to happen in April. I think like all the rumors were saying it was happening in April, and something happened. I don't know if, you know, I'm not sure what happened behind the scenes, but it seemed like it got pushed a couple months, and that you know, I feel like that's why they went with that initial snapshot, which it sucks. They should have moved it up. They should have moved it up to at least like last month. And I saw posts that they may be reconsidering like how they do the allotment, and that there may change. I remember that Starknet did something similar. Like after everybody was mad, they kind of redid something, if I remember correctly. But
I think it was Eigenlayer.
oh,
actually,
was it?
John.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. So I'm not sure if they will.
Eigenlayer like dropped an extra 1,000 every wallet.
Oh wow, nice. So yeah, I don't know if ZK will do that. I don't know if they, but it seems like there's been quite a backlash, and I totally understand that like people are pissed. I would be too if I was working on something for that long and then it you know, ended up getting like no allocation. Although I really do think like a lot of my friends that I talked to, they didn't really realize how important the just spamming swap transactions specifically are. They're like, I did all these things on the blockchain, like, you know, and I'm like, yeah, you did. And they're like, that's just like one criteria. And it's like, yeah, but it's unfortunately like the main one they look at, it seems like, on all these.
Super valid point. Very, very expert insight there. Vino V's, I see you have your hand up. And then Thomas, I wasn't sure if you were trying to cut into the conversation, but if you are, go ahead.
I'll let Vino go first.
Oh, Thomas, you're so kind. Yeah, like it's interesting, the ZK sync thing. We've talked. One of the questions that was leveled at you there was kind of along the lines of, do you think the way they handled this was a very good, bad kind of dynamic in terms of how they approached actually releasing an airdrop? It's a really interesting question because obviously I think a lot of the pain that people are feeling comes from the fact that there was a sense of entitlement there that perhaps wasn't warranted. I mean, I can recognize that in myself even, you know, I've only been farming ZK for like a few months. And, you know, it would have been nice, but at the same time, it wasn't a guaranteed thing. And I wasn't really around long enough to really justify any sense that I deserved having any ZK sync. But I suppose what I am questioning is the kind of philosophy underpinning it. You know, like crypto has often been a place where like it tends towards empowering people to make decisions for themselves, empowering people to kind of take charge of their own economy and their own identity and all of those kind of things. And I think the one thing that did bother me about the ZK sync thing was the lack of transparency, you know, like the snapshot being completely secret and still advertising this airdrop like months after the fact. Little things like that. Like, how do you feel about that? Almost from the sort of, does it align with your crypto values kind of question?
Well, that's interesting because I would say no, it doesn't. But at the same time, I kind of don't blame them either, because the things that you are legally allowed to say about an airdrop when it is approaching and you are in the process of launching it is extremely limited. So I'm sure that this team had a ton of lawyers on them saying, you can't say this, you can't say that. And like, even if they were like, but our community's mad, and it's like, yeah, but do you want to be in jail, or do you want the feds to come and shut the whole thing down? I have a feeling that those are the kind of conversations that happen in situations like this. So that's what I'm saying is like, I don't agree with how they messaged it, but at the same time, like I do see how in this current system that we're working with, that their hands were kind of tied in a lot of ways. And I feel like that's why you see a lot of this lack of transparency from a lot of teams regarding airdrops.
I think that's a really beautiful insight, because obviously there is anger and frustration and blah, blah, blah out there. Being able to gain that insight, from someone like you who's kind of working with a team and seeing this from the inside, I think, we talk about bridging currencies all the time. Bridging empathy as well is really important. And, probably a lot of people haven't considered just how tied up that team were with like the legal frameworks that they have to live by. So, yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure most of us had to use a VPN even just to access the wallet checker yesterday. So, that's because they're worried about the regulatory stuff, and they're worried about how they can get in trouble and stuff. So I think, yeah, it's always good to kind of consider that when you see weird messaging from teams. That's almost always the reason for it. And I'm sure that there's like a lot of people on the team who would much rather just be real with people. Yeah.
No, that's super powerful insight. I also didn't even consider the legal bindings that would prevent you from having open communication about an airdrop. Yeah, very valid points indeed. Yeah, so again, congratulations on your fat allotment. We'll see if they readjust things. Hopefully yours doesn't decline. I think it would be easy to tap into their community pool to make another round of wallet holders whole. But like I said, it always takes that foresight and hitting the ground, and you definitely demonstrated that. So, you deserve it. You do. And I think at the end of the day, nobody's entitled to an airdrop. Users are rewarded on specific criteria. It's frustrating when you don't know exactly what that criteria is, yet it still exists. And so if you were early, if you were doing the things, if you were engaged at the right time, then you got rewarded. And I think I guess the frustrating side of that is that insider information always exists in this space, and it seems that certain people have the edge, when it comes to this, and they
Did
know.
Pelosi partake in the ZK Sync airdrop hunt?
Say that again.
Did Pelosi engage in the ZK Sync farm?
Oh yeah, I'm sure she did. I'm sure she has a whole cluster of Sybil farmers working for her.
Her middle name is Sybil.
Stop.
Amazing.
That would be insane if it was true.
I'm just joking.
That's exactly the kind of boomer middle name somebody might have in her generation, though.
So true. I will say on Orbiter, though, they tell you exactly how you can game the system with those bonus points that they have on the sidebar there a lot of times. So there are some projects, and usually the projects that are transparent about it, you'll be able to see that it's the ones that do the points, because the points is a legal loophole, because you're not promising people airdrops, you're promising points. So you can say anything you want about points. That is a lot of the reason why people are doing points right now, because it's a lot safer to market.
Well, points.
Yeah,
Points make sense, but I feel like there is something a bit disingenuous because nobody really knows how those points get converted into tokens.
Oh yeah.
And it seems like it's kind of like we can assign points now and we'll figure out the token allotments later type of solution. And Thomas, I think I cut you off. Go ahead. Or somebody was about to speak and I cut them off.
No, all good. I was going to say something along the same lines. It's going to be really interesting to see the way some of these points systems actually do play out, because one of the first ones so far that I've seen turn into an actual airdrop is the Pirate Nation airdrop, which is coming out tomorrow by Proof of Play. I think is the company behind them, and they've been doing booty points for their game for a little while now. And the interesting aspect of that is that they've actually cut out an entire group of people that have points but haven't hit a specific threshold. Sorry about helicopters flying over me right now, but yeah. So they're kind of creating a threshold that is the minimum points that you have to earn in order to actually get an airdrop allocation, but you don't know what that threshold is until they decide what it is. So I'm wondering if that's going to happen in the future, because basically what they said is that it's too much. They said it in different words, but basically it's too much work to allocate such a small amount of people who've earned such a small amount of points with actual airdrops. So they just cut those people out.
And it also, like, you know, you want to give less people more money. It depends on how many people. Like, you know, if you could give 100,000 people $1,000, or like 1 million people $10, my math is probably off there, but you know, it's probably more impactful to do the first one. But and you kind of can't get around that in a lot of ways, because it has to be divided up somehow. The not telling people is just kind of a way to force everybody to grind, which unfortunately, like, some of these dystopian mechanics do come into play.
Yeah, for sure. Another tool that I would like to see used a little bit more is, I think there are some really cool mechanics coming out with these passports and these different ways for you to kind of like prove that you're a human without actually like giving away any identifiable information. So it's not that invasive in terms of your personal privacy. And it would be interesting just to see if they use those a little bit more in the future, because I know with even the ZK Sync, there were some civil wallets that did end up getting allocations, and I definitely think that should be avoided.
Yeah, I definitely you had to do proof of humanity for Linea. I'm not sure if you farmed Linea yet.
Yeah, for sure.
And I used Gitcoin Passport as a part of that, but that wasn't enough. Like, they made you do a whole bunch of different stuff. And there was like this thing that happened a couple months ago with Gitcoin Passport where they changed the rankings, and like everybody was super mad about it, but my wallet ended up like doing pretty good. I don't know why.
I think proof of humanity stuff is going to be very powerful going forward if people start to use it, because one of the big components of airdrop farming that I see at the moment is that it's very gamified, and that by its very nature means that there's a divide between people who can and can't. You know, I think, John, you mentioned this earlier about like how not everyone has the capacity all the time to drop one ETH into a TVL pool on a different chain, because not everyone has one ETH. Likewise, not everyone has the time, you know, outside of their work, outside of their busy lives, to be like dicking around, like jumping from chain to chain to chain in order to try and kind of make these transactions happen so that you get recognized. Whereas proof of humanity, it's kind of a bit more intrinsic. It's like kind of just saying I exist. And so if you've got a wallet that you have existed with for a really long time, that's, you know, it might not have regular transactions, but it shows that you've been there, that you've been advocating, that you've been practicing, and you've been working within that ecosystem for, you know, 3, 4, 5 years. I think that's a super, super powerful tool. I'd love to see that be used more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think. Sorry, do you have something to say there?
No, I just think it's racist against AI.
against AI. Yeah, I think Linea is actually going to be one of the best distributed airdrops. Like, I don't know what kind of percentage they're given. I don't know if they put that out there yet. But between the proof of humanity that they made people do, and then the Linea, they ruined it recently with another campaign. But it depends on how they weight things, because they had that Linea Park campaign in addition to the proof of humanity, where you had to like download like 12 different apps on your mobile and then another 10 on desktop and go through and like verify that you've used every single one of these apps. And people are not going to do that through with multiple wallets. Like, they might try, maybe 2 or 3, but they're not going to be able to do any more than that. So that's going to be really interesting to see how that goes down. But the only thing that sucks is that after that Linea Park thing, they added one more campaign onto their airdrop thing, and that was like for whales to bring liquidity and deposit in the LPs. So like, what I'm hoping is that they weigh that campaign lower, like they get less XP for that or something. That would be the fair way to do it, in my opinion.
So I actually know the answer here. They've allocated a multiplier effect based on your early ecosystem participation, and depending on how early you participate and how old your wallet is interacting with Linea, then you get a certain amount of bonus points for each thing that would earn you LXPL. And if you've come into the ecosystem later, you get a fraction of those points. So it makes it much harder for you to earn LXPL.
Well, that's perfect then. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a nice design.
Then it'll be really interesting to see what kind of allocations people get, because that's probably one of the first like really truly anti-Sybil things, except for Layer Zero and their whole like snitch campaign. But I don't know if I like that.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate Layer Zero really trying to get the civils out of there, and they've done a lot of research with like Nansen and with like other groups to do it as well. But the snitch thing was a bit questionable.
Yeah, it was definitely a little bit weird. That'll be an interesting one to see too. I mean, I was working on Layer Zero with 2 wallets, like not even really on purpose, just like bridging things. So like I didn't like snitch on myself, so it'll be interesting to see if they connect them, or it'll be mad that it's 2, or if that's like they're not worried about that. They're worried about like people with like 10 or 100 or something.
Did you they released like a checker that tells you if your wallet's civil or not?
Oh no, I didn't.
Yeah.
I'll have to look into that. Nice.
Yeah, you can check that out and it'll tell you if your wallet's like not on the list, then you're good.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
The snitching mechanic was so weird. Like, I mean, aside from the fact that, it was done for the right reasons, trying to get rid of like bot farms and all that kind of stuff. If you grew up in the 90s, there was this TV show on Disney called Recess about like high school kids just like hanging out, and there was this one kid who was the snitch, and everyone hated that character. I feel like Layer Zero lent into that character so hard, and it was not a good look.
Yeah, I think it was a bit of game theory. Like, I think they knew that they didn't have a perfect way to catch civils, and they were like acting like they did, and they basically kind of bluffed and kind of tested to see what would come out of that.
Yeah, and it was kind of funny because I remember like in the beginning when they first started their campaigns, they were like, "We're not worried about Sybils at all. Like, come on, bring it." Like, and then once they saw how many wallets were on, they were like, "Oh man, this is not going to work."
Great discussion, guys. Absolutely great discussion. It kind of leads me into, I guess this will be the final topic for today. We've been going on for almost an hour and a half, a little bit longer than we normally do, but I appreciate your time, John, and everybody on the stage today. And I guess that's just like, is airdrop hunting a whales game? Is there a place for, regular people? I was talking to Thomas about this last week, And I feel like if you're an airdrop hunter, you probably fall into one of two categories. Either you're, a casual user or a power user, like a whale. And I think knowing where you fall definitely can help influence your airdrop hunting decisions, right? I think that just trying to qualify for a minimum allotment by itself, I think that's a very valid strategy. And but it requires, knowing what the minimum requirements are going to be. But yeah, I don't know if anybody wants to weigh in on this, but I think that, yeah, go ahead, Vino.
Yeah, like it's such a great question. I honestly think it's a little bit like politics, and I'm not going to get into politics, just as a heads up, but it's that kind of thing of it doesn't matter which way you vote, like you decide how you feel about things, but it is fair to say that different styles of politics will prioritize different kinds of people. Some chains will prioritize whales. They want those massive TVLs. They want those people that have got like a huge amount of economic sway. They want those people that can throw around like multiples of ETH and Bitcoin. And then they can post that on Twitter and say, look, we've got like $2 million of TVL in like the last 10 seconds. Of course, that's going to happen. You've also got political parties that will be much more for the common man, political parties that are much more into sort of looking out for the small people, looking out for people that are just regular users who are just going about their day trying to do their best. I think crypto is probably going to be the same. I mean, there was certainly a point, maybe like 8 years ago, when crypto looked a little bit more like it was going to be like a kind of little utopia. But certainly there is this, I think that distinction is there now, where like it could go either way, and depending on what you're putting your time and effort into, will probably turn out a little bit aligned with those kinds of sensibilities.
I will add that it's definitely possible to get higher than the minimum allotment with a small amount. In the case of the ZK Sync thing, like I was telling you, when I was saying, swap $1,000 back and forth, like that was like I was throwing out my exact numbers that I used to farm with on that chain. So I literally just swapped $1,000 back as many times as I possibly could. I lost a few hundred in that for sure over 2 years, but then ended up getting an allocation that's several $1,000s later. So definitely worth it. It was just that I zeroed in on the specific task that I was supposed to do. So knowing those thresholds is important. Keeping up on all the checkers that come out, like even the stuff that people create that has nothing to do with the company, and they say like this, and usually they're off base. Like they'll give you a projection of how much you're going to get, and it won't be correct, but at the same time it still gives you like the targets that you should hit and the things that are kind of most important. So
you mentioned something there that's super interesting, and I'd love to ask you this question. Because one of the things that aDrop is trying to do is to save people time. It's to save people time, make this whole process more efficient. So like you honed in on ZK, and obviously you've done fairly well out of it, which is awesome. But like how much time do you reckon on average per day or per week you was actually spending doing that?
Well, it's tough because of the fact that I work in the industry and I do like some ghostwriting and stuff too. So like I'm always paying attention to things. So the time that I spend paying attention to things is for multiple jobs. So I'm not. It's not like I'm fully dedicating it to the airdrop farming, and a lot of times, I discover things in my searching for other things. But I might put a couple hours a week into it or something like that. But that's just doing some like transactions in the background while I'm listening to some music or something like that. Or it's like that all those different events piled up over 2 years that ends up, resulting in quite a bit of time, but it ends up being worth it because it's spread out.
That makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. So you weren't spending a lot of time like specifically just farming ZK Sync in your day-to-day routine. It was more just kind of spread out over time, casually.
Yeah, exactly. And then there would be every now and then I would pop on there, and I would just make 100 transactions back and forth, ETH and wrapped ETH.
100
Yeah.
casually, and that doesn't look like a bot.
Yeah, I
Who
mean,
just sits there exchanging?
yeah, no, you got to just spam it. You know what I mean?
How is that normal human behavior?
Yeah, well, because when it's mixed in with the other things that you do, and your wallet has like a lot of history doing things, but yeah, I'm obviously just farming. But it's not a bot. Like, if I knew how to make a bot to do it, I would. But I definitely just sit there.
Okay.
If I'm watching a movie or something, I'll sit there and spam a bunch of transactions, just ETH and wrapped ETH back and forth,
It's
back
like
and forth, back and forth.
grinding level 6 wolves in World of Warcraft.
Yeah, and the thing that sucks though is I used to do all my farming from my hardware wallet, and now I don't do that anymore, because then that's like a whole extra step that I have to keep on doing and pushing the button on the treasure.
Makes you look extra human, though. I don't know any AIs with a hardware wallet.
That is true. If they can detect that I have a hardware wallet, that may help, I guess.
Yeah, and I think the reason why it all depends for what they're looking for in terms of certain types of civil activity. So if they're just looking at network clusterings and how certain walls are funded, they're not really going to care as much about somebody doing the same transaction over and over again. But obviously, it's something that they could look at as well.
Yeah, I mean, it looked really weird because I would do the wrapped ETH and ETH back and forth, and then I would buy a fraction of a penny's worth of every meme coin on ZK Sync. Yeah, because that's more contract interactions. Because I'm interacting with every single
It's more ERC. It was actually one of their qualification criteria. Interact with 10 ERC20 tokens on ZK Sync.
Yeah, so if the threshold was 100, I was going to hit it. You know what I mean? Yeah, so
that was one of the things that really bothered me. I had the opportunity such a long time ago to get into bonsai, and I just kind of faded it. Chef, you said earlier on in the conversation how in the bear market it's so much harder to keep your enthusiasm. I remember bonsai coming out on the Lens ecosystem, and I could have been one of those early adopters. It was right there, the door was open. I didn't bother. I wasn't interested at that point.
I got a ton of that for free just because I posted on Lens.
And then when ZK announced that they were rewarding bonsai users, I was just sat there horrendous.
That's
horrendous
why.
feeling.
That's why I got that bonus. I didn't even realize that.
Yeah, they awarded 3 or 4. They called them experimental communities, and I think Bonsai was one of them. Pudgy Penguins,
Degen.
My Ladies, and Degen. Those were the 4.
Awesome.
But you had to have only gotten the first Degen airdrop to have qualified, though. So it wasn't just like a Degen holder.
Yeah, I missed out on Degen, unfortunately, because I just was kind of a Lens maxi, and I didn't really get too into Farcaster.
Out of curiosity, as a Lens maxi, are you using Favor as well?
No, actually. Which one? Is that a new app in the ecosystem?
I wouldn't say new, but they're taking things slowly. They're an orb competitor, but perhaps a little bit more Facebooky than Twittery.
Yeah, PHAVER, right?
Yeah. That's the one.
But they allow you to watch their Farcaster too.
I use Hey on desktop and I use T2, which is like their blogging platform since I'm a writer, and then I use Orb on mobile. But I don't use mobile a whole lot because I live in the middle of the woods and I don't leave the house much unless I'm traveling somewhere.
That's so decentralized of us. Everybody is on different platforms with different apps, looking at different sides of the same protocols. I love it.
That's awesome.
Nobody's coming together.
It's better than us all being funneled towards the same thing.
True.
Love it. What an incredible discussion. Yeah, I appreciate you guys.
Talking about funnels, Telegram. Sorry.
Yeah. I was just about to mention. So recently we opened a Telegram channel. Please join it if you haven't. I did post a link in the tweet about this spaces below, and the link here is Telegram with the ending. I believe aDrop. Hold on, I'm sorry, I'm fumbling it right now. It is. Oh, never mind. I don't have the.
It's t.me/aDrop_AI.
That's it. Thank you, Rashid. Appreciate it. Yeah, so please join the Telegram. We have a lot of up-to-date announcements in there, as well as conversation and all that good stuff. So Thomas is posting alpha in there every day. It's a great place to be. We will be launching our beta in a couple weeks. I'm really excited about that. John, I think you're going to absolutely enjoy using our tools. I do want to hear some feedback from you later on in private, good and bad. But I think you're really going to enjoy it just based off of this conversation, because it's going to create a lot of ease of use. And I think that that tip about switching ETH to WETH is a really, really keen tip that I think we're going to have to take a look at, because I'm not sure that's been integrated. But if that's the cheapest way, I've been doing a lot of swapping.
Sorry.
Yeah, do some experimenting with that. It's surprising how much it saves.
Yeah, because I mean, just swapping $1,000 of USDC to ETH and back and forth, you don't get a lot of slippage, but there's just a tiny bit. So yeah, be curious to see how that works. Orbiter's great. Orbiter's got some heavy fees. I'm not sure how you're feeling about those, but
their whole airdrop scheme is like a cashback program. It's not an airdrop.
Yeah, I don't even want to think about how much I wasted
right
bridging on that just to get the points.
Yeah, but I think it'll probably be a good one. For sure. I think it's definitely a strong contender. It's one of the only instant
appreciate
bridges
in the future, right? You only get that face value. You might appreciate.
Well, I mean, if you look at the wormhole airdrop and the amount of value that was valued at, I don't know if Orbiter is going to be anything near that. It's really hard to say, but they do support the most chains out of any bridge I've come across.
Yeah, and their interface is beautiful,
which is valuable. So their tech is interesting, to say the least. Hopefully, they'll get a real smart contract out there at some point, but they definitely do have high bridging fees, but instant settlement. So,
Gravy, go ahead. You got your hand up. First time today.
Yo, what's up, guys? It's been great listening in. Thanks for all your insights, John. I just wanted to mention that the Orbiter fees, they seem to vary based on like your first one seems to like it's often free or next to free, and then subsequent transactions often charge. So if you're just doing it once or twice, you can probably do it for cheap. But I noticed like if you're trying to go up last, for example, I was able to do one, and then the second one started to charge me like 2% plus for the transactions. But I'm using it actually right now as we speak to hit the Arbitrum airdrop, where you just swap to a bunch of different chains. I think if you hit like 10 different unique chains, like going to Arbitrum, then you qualify for $100,000 airdrop that they're doing. Funny that you said a rebate or more like a cashback program. But just wanted to point out that like that's basically free. I'm paying like 0.00. I'm paying like a dollar, I think, maybe per transaction. So that'll be maybe cost me like $10 total.
Interesting. Yeah, we'll definitely have to take a closer look at that. I think, I think the dollar cost definitely varies from time to time because I've paid as much as $3 per transaction.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. There's a set fee generally that they charge you in there, so the fee is like set prior to the transaction happening. And it's usually not in a percentage basis, except for Blast, I believe. I believe Blast is the only one they do in a percentage basis.
Yeah, and I think that the fee is 0.0005. So that is what, like $1.50 roughly per transaction. So
Yeah,
it's not
something like that.
not free, but it's definitely it adds up.
And I mean, when you're using the protocol because you need to, I think it's a totally reasonable cost. Just when you're farming, it can add up over the
But who
course of
uses
100, 200
who uses
transactions.
DeFi because they need to? Right?
Well, a bunch of people who got their liquidity stuck on Blast will be using it very soon, I'm sure. I think there's going to be a bank run on Blast once the Blast gold drops and everybody starts selling it for ETH, and
True.
then they want to transfer off. You know, the native Blast chain takes 14 days to
What?
bridge out of.
No.
14
Shut
days.
the
It's a
door.
lifetime. I just
No.
tried to take a quarter ETH off of Blast that I had staked on on Init Capital for a good month. And
What?
it was 14 days. And there's a huge red
Okay.
disclaimer that says you will stop earning awards. And it's kind of unclear to me if that means that all the previous awards that I earned are null and void, or if they're just really trying to scare me into keeping my stuff
Keeping it
on the
on there.
network. But I know that once the incentive is gone, I think there's going to be a major run. And you know, the liquidity on Blast, the ETH that's on there, you know, it's going to get diluted by all the sell pressure from the gold, right? So like total ETH came in, now ETH is going to get, you know, spent on gold. I think I think it's going to crumble. That's my personal prediction. Jeff Dizzy.
Wow.
We'll see how it goes,
Wow.
but yeah. The Orbiter. What makes it relevant to Orbiter is that Orbiter is one of the only places you can bridge out fairly instantly, right? And so, and the way they do that is by having, I'm sure, some kind of like reserves to allow the transaction to take place, and then they just wait for it to happen in the background, right,
So
to replenish on
Orbiter
their
has
side.
set themselves up to like make tremendous, ridiculous, like fuck you amounts of money.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like.
So
That's what it
like
sounds like.
the 60 euros from the Orbiter airdrop that I will receive in the future will be maybe worth 120 if I'm lucky due to
We'll
Blast.
see, buddy. We'll see. You
Oh,
got to plant the
amazing!
seeds.
Love it.
Yeah, so thanks all for joining us. Thank you again so much, John. You've been an amazing guest. You know, we covered all kinds of topics, and you're such a wealth of knowledge about all different kinds of things. And you spoke really well on all subjects, from blockchain and the chain to, you know, your earlier experiences. And yeah, I can just tell that you're a real man of the space. And so it's been a pleasure having you on here. Thank you.
I love it.
Yeah, and John, we'd love to have you in the Telegram. We're always just like dropping new info that we're getting on airdrops, different qualification things. So it's a fun place to be. So we'd love to have you there.
Yeah, sounds good. I'll definitely jump in there.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.
Also
Yeah,
goes
I'll
for
be.
Gloria, Ultralight Beam, everybody in the chat, no cap. Yeah, just come over.
Oh, of course, and thank you guys for listening too. I mean, the show wouldn't be anything without some listeners. So I appreciate that. We will be publishing this space as a podcast on our Podbean. They're also being uploaded to Spotify, which is pretty exciting. I have some links planned for the Twitter this week. We'll get that officially going. But yeah, all our Twitter spaces are recorded and republished as podcasts, so you can listen at your convenience. And yeah, anyway. Thanks all once again. I hope you have a great rest of your Wednesday, and we'll catch you next Wednesday. Take care.